Thanks again, everybody, for joining. My name is Clever McQuarrie, and I'm the Partner Relationship Manager at ByteSpeed. You may be well aware of what ByteSpeed has to offer, but I'll just give you a very quick rundown. So has been in business since 1999, custom building desktops, servers, and those come with 5-year warranty, lifetime tech support. And beyond that, we've formed a variety of partnerships, such as Juniper, Ruckus, HPE, who we're here to talk about today, physical security with the Vigilant, Vicata. But and each of those partners have a solution that they serve and solve a problem for customers, and you try to pick them very wisely and carefully. But I'm excited to have a conversation about what HPE has to offer specifically around compute, allowing us to serve customers that have vital needs that need 24/7 support, and HPE makes it very easy to manage all the devices through their GreenLake platform, which we'll talk about today as well. So I'll introduce David Wagner and John Bassart also that will be presenting today. So maybe before we get started, they can introduce themselves and kind of give you a sneak overview of what to expect. But thanks again for joining our conversation today around HPE compute, particularly storage and server options and how those can be managed. So David, John, go ahead and introduce yourselves before we get into the subject matter for today.
Um,
Okay,
Go ahead, David.
okay, thank you. Thanks for having us today. Thanks for joining us. My name is David Wagner. I'm a senior technical enablement engineer supporting HPE. And as Clever mentioned, I'm going to talk today about HP storage systems and some of the benefits to those, as well as their compute platforms. And then there's a few other special things about the servers that I want to share as well. And then we're going to hand it off to John to do a demo. And John, you can go ahead.
Yep. I'm a business transformation center engineer. Again, I support HP across stack, so server, storage, networking solutions, and I provide demonstration capabilities on these solutions. And what I would say is, you need to see any of these solutions above and beyond what I show you later on today, certainly reach out to Clever and he can loop me in, and we can really get into the nuts and bolts of how these solutions work. All right, Dave, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Let's get started. So first, I'm going to touch base on the HP block storage portfolio. HP's got primarily 4 products that cover support for block storage on either SAS, iSCSI, or fiber channel that they sell. Today, I'm going to talk about the first 3 on this slide, which are the HPE MSA, which is their entry-level general purpose SAN. Then we'll touch on the Alletra 5000. And then lastly, their new, I would say, flagship product, which is the Alletra MP B10000. HP's got these sort of divided up into different categories, like I was saying earlier on the MSA being a general purpose array. It's inexpensive. It's got support for SAS, which is nice for small environments. And then moving up with that 5000, this is in the B10000, really, this is where these are for more high availability environments. They got more features and functionality. And with the B10000, you actually have 100% guaranteed availability. The 5000 and 10000 have the same management plane, which John will show you, and I'll talk about a little briefly. The MSA being their entry level is a little bit different, but one other thing I want to say too is all these products are available to do a traditional CapEx purchase, or you can do an OpEx as a service purchase of these products, so get a monthly bill. One of HPE's goals has been over the last several years is to provide customers the ability to have a cloud-like experience with on-prem hardware, because a lot of people have applications that either for how they were developed or for security reasons or compliance can't be put in the cloud. So that's one of the nice benefits of the HPE portfolio, is ability to do cloud management for a lot of their products. So first I'm going to go into the MSA. This is their entry-level array, and there's currently 2 generations that are being sold. Now, this is a little bit unusual for HPE. Typically, when a new generation came along, they would end of life the other ones. But with this generation, they realized that the 60 series, which you see on the bottom, that what they call the budget optimized models, the 1060, the 2060, and the 2062, really still had a good place in the market. They were still good products, and they're less expensive. So for people that don't need the high performance, near twice performance of the 2070, 2072, they decided to keep both product lines around. This is a dual controller architecture with an active-active design, where basically you can take a bunch of drive shelves, either small form factor or large form factor, both spinning disk as well as SSDs, and scale them from as little as 12 drives for large form factor, 24 for small, up into many drives, like over 100 drives, depending on what type of configuration you're looking for. They do have the ability to get encryption. They use self-encrypting drives for that. And they have some pretty cool features, even for an entry-level array, that is delivered through the Advanced Data Services Suite, which I'll talk about. One of the new things that came out with Gen 6 and still here with the Gen 7 is their user interface, their UI now has the ability to basically give you guided workflows for things that you need to do. So creating hosts, or adding hosts, creating volumes, working with the different disk pools, and all the different facets of managing the array. They make it a lot easier than it was in the past. So no more like having to read a user manual to get your job done. You can just follow the guided workflows right in the UI. Now, as an entry-level array, it doesn't have certain features that we'll talk about in some of the other ones. It doesn't have dedupe, it doesn't have compression, but it does have the ability to do tiering. So the idea with tiering is basically you can set up different pools on the array of drives. You can have SSDs, you can have regular spinning disks, 10K, 15K. Then you can also have what you call an archive tier, which would be the large form factor, large capacity drives. And then what you can do is you can set this up to do tiering, so that what will happen is it'll move the most active data to the highest performance tier. And it does that in real time, all the time, so that the things that are the most active get the best performance. And then as things go cold, as the data isn't accessed as much, it'll start moving back down. And you can do it with 2 tiers, you can do it with 3, that's your choice. And SSDs, obviously being the highest performance, is typically you want to have a few of those. That really helps with performance, and that's one of the things they do with this bundling that they offer. So when I was mentioning there's a 2060 and a 2062, 2070, 2072, those are bundles where you start off with 2 SSDs for your start. They set you off ready to start doing tiering if you want to do that. But you can add tiering later on. It's just a license that you add, the Advanced Data Services license, and that'll allow you to do the tiering. Another new thing that came in Gen 6 and still here is Gen 7 is a new type of disk pool. Older MSAs had the traditional RAIDs that you're used to, like RAID 5, RAID 6, RAID 10, RAID 1 you could even do. The problem with those is that it can be more difficult for users to to manage that, to have to think a little bit about what they're going to do with their hard drives, how they're going to stack them together. Now with this DP Plus, you start off with a minimum of 12 drives, so it does quite require a little bit of investment in how many drives you use, but that's not that many drives really, depending on the capacity that you need. And then it sets these up to stripe across all the drives using a RAID 6 like striping mechanism. It builds in some spare capacity in that as well, so you don't have to worry about having drive spares. And then the beautiful thing about it is you can add one drive at a time, and it scales up to 128 drives. Another newer thing with the MSA is this thing called the health check. So what this allows you to do is go to a web portal. You connect it to your particular MSA. It'll upload um, information from the different sensors in it. It'll look at firmware. It'll check the best practices, and then it'll make recommendations on what you should do to get your array in compliance so that you don't have problems going forward. And this is web-based, cloud-based tool, and it's free for anybody. So even customers that have older MSAs can take advantage of this. You don't have to have a current support contract. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Alletra 5000. Now, those of you that may have sold or used Nimble in the past, that was an acquisition HPE made a number of years ago. And they still have Nimble-based products. It's just they did a rebranding a few years ago. So the new branding is Alletra. So Alletra 6000 and the 5000, this is based on that Nimble DNA, that OS. So, lots of solutions deployed globally, lots of customers, and very good customer service and reliability. Now, we talked about GreenLake earlier as a management plane, where you can see your storage systems, your servers, and one of the pieces of this is the data services cloud console. So this is what you would use to manage your Alletra 5000 as well as the B10000 that I'll talk about a little later. So a lot of these things apply to both products, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. So when you're connected to that, it's very simple from a deployment perspective. It'll detect new devices, they're automatically discovered, they're onboarded, and then you can start doing configuration for them. One also nice thing about it is the upgrades are delivered via the cloud. You don't have to go search for files. They're all there that you need to do OS upgrades, firmware upgrades to your storage systems. Also, for ease of use, they have this ability, which is called intent-based provisioning. So if you have multiple units, you can go into intent-based provisioning and say, hey, I need a new volume for a SQL server, and I'm looking for this much capacity. And what this will do is actually go find the array that's got the is the best fit for that volume to put on it, so you don't have to think about it yourself. And as mentioned earlier, this is cloud-based, so you can manage it anywhere. It's a single portal, and it can manage multiple arrays, different products from their storage family, as well as your compute products. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So very easy to get set up, like I said, auto-discovered, activated, and then they have some predefined best practices they'll deploy on the array as well. You can do things like set up your snapshot schedules and other important things for a data protection standpoint. I mentioned the intent-based provisioning. Again, just an easy way to get volume set up, and what they call their AI will look and make sure that it's picking the best volume, best array to put the workload on. As far as resiliency, The Alletra 5000 has triple parity RAID. They call it triple plus, really. It can sustain up to 3 drive failures at a time. It has a built-in sparing so that if you have fourth failure, it could be rebuilt in time for that to happen. Also has this parity information that monitors the different volumes to make sure that there's no small like errors on a disk or something like that, so those can be rid of. As a more of a mid-range array, it does have deduplication, compression, zero pattern elimination, allows you to do thin provisioning, and on average you get a 4-to-1 or greater data reduction. And HP actually has a guarantee around that as well, that you'll achieve that on data that is actually reducible. If you need to do encryption is built in. There's no license for it. It doesn't use SSDs. It is a software-based encryption. And this is also in flight, so it's not just data on the drives. It's also encrypted as data is traveling across the network. And you can integrate this with different key managers if you have a lot of arrays that you're managing, or if you just have a lot of encryption and security that you're doing. So it can act as a key manager for you, or you could use an external key manager if you want. As far as data protection, has snapshots. It has the ability to do what they call smart copies, which is really like a clone, if you will, of a volume. And then from a replication standpoint, they have both asynchronous and synchronous replication available. Another thing that's nice on the Nimble platform and also on the Alletras is this thing called InfoSight. So this would be HP's AI in the cloud, if you will, and it covers most of their portfolio. Now, they are migrating a lot of these into the GreenLake platform as well. So on the newer array, the B10000, that's where you get this type of functionality. But what this is doing is it's gathering information, sensor data from your array. It's looking at what your growth patterns may look like. Are you having IO spikes? Is there something that looks like maybe there's a failure happening? And it's gathering this information for the entire install base of HPE. So an example of something that could happen, for example, is that you may have some kind of patch that, let's say, Microsoft puts out, and come to find out it breaks something that the array can't handle. It can blacklist that so that it doesn't infect other customers once it detects it. So it's really good at being able to find problems and make sure that the entire ecosphere of customers aren't impacted by them. Also, it does root cause analysis of problems that are occurring. It can actually open cases itself and then fix them. It can help you plan for upgrades so that okay, it looks like in 6 months we're going to run out of capacity, so maybe we got to start thinking about doing something about that. I mentioned the customer inoculation. So like I said, if it finds something that's going on, it can make sure that other customers aren't impacted by it. With their predictive analytics, generally level 1 and 2 issues are resolved because of the root cause analysis. And often they will actually contact you if they detect a problem that you need to do something about. Very low hold time and very high customer satisfaction with the support. Last thing I will mention about InfoSight is this Welcome Center. So this is a place you can go to get a complete guide on how to set up your array. It walks you through everything, pre-install requirements, how to do the physical installation, and they have videos that show you how to do stuff like that. And then it'll help you with the software configuration and validation. And this is available across all their products. So here's the array. This is the 5,000. So it's optimized for data efficiency with that compaction I talked about. It has 6 nines available guaranteed. So you can be assured that it has very good uptime. And it's super easy to use. This is an array you don't have to think about RAID sets or anything. You just say, hey, you know, I need a volume to do this, and it gives you the capacity you need, and you go off running with that array. There's 4 models, the 5010H and the 5010. They're really the same performance, just the 5010H is a half populated unit, so less capacity. It's great for environments where really cost is an issue, and you know, you want to get there in an entry level way. And then it scales up to the 5030 and 5050, which deliver more performance, but also deliver the ability to do more capacity. Next, I want to talk about the V10000. So like the Alletra 5000 was based on Nimble, the B10000 goes back to a 3-par DNA. If you've heard of 3-par or Primera was another name of it. This is a brand new array, but it's got the same operating system like DNA from that, and the same type of features and functionality. It's a mission critical array with 100% data uptime guarantee. It's the first disaggregated scale out block storage, and I'll try to explain what that means. So the way it works is the controller nodes are all independent boxes. You have an option to do a fabric switches in between them and the disk chassis, or you can go direct, just depending on how far you want to scale. But then they have drive chassis that are separate from the controllers. And what this allows you to do is do sort of strange things from a scalability standpoint, but they're really cool, and it leads to greater total cost of ownership and greater efficiency. They do have QLC drives as well as TLC drives for the product. So if you have a high capacity need but not as much performance, that's where you can go with QLC. I mentioned they have a guarantee for data reduction on the 5000. Same is true here. 4-to-1 data reduction is guaranteed. There's no contract you need for it. It just only covers data that's actually reducible, because some things you can't do data reduction on, like multimedia files and things like that. There is a program they have called Timeless. Timeless allows you to basically invest up front for an 8-year cycle where you'll get a guaranteed refresh with a next generation controller at some point during the process. So that can be interesting. So I mentioned here's how it looks. The management is in the web on their GreenLake cloud control platform. And then you can see in the picture there, the controller nodes are at the top, and then you have switching potentially, if depending on what you want to scale, in the middle, that is completely dedicated to back-end traffic on the array. And then you have your what they call the JBOFs, which are where the drives are stored. Another one of the things that's really cool about this too is you can start small and you can scale up as your needs change. They have 16-core, 32-core processors, started in 8-core, and they all interact with each other. You can upgrade from one to another with some limitations, but even if you can't completely do it, migration is very easy between the two, because you can do it with built-in migration tools that they have and do that online. Mentioned earlier the data services cloud console. So this is out on their GreenLake platform. I'll have John, talk more about that, but that's how this array is managed. So 100% data availability guarantee. So this is a no-cost feature. It just comes with it. If you have any experience of less than 100% availability, as opposed to as a result of something that happened with the array, HPE will provide you a credit that can be redeemed later on. And it doesn't require very much. You just have to have a support contract. You have to make sure that you keep up with your patches and get those things fixed rather quickly and keep up to date, and then you're qualified for the guarantee. Another thing that's sort of special about this array is something called HPE Virtual Lock. So what this is these are snapshots that you can set a certain time frame in which they cannot be deleted, even by a system admin. Nobody can delete them. You can't even have HP delete it. The only way to get rid of them would be to wipe the entire array and restart it, which you're not going to do, obviously. What's great about this is we can help you with a ransomware attack. So if you schedule regular snapshots, either on the array or a backup application, you can recover those virtual locked snapshots that can't be modified or deleted, and then do your due diligence to see if there's any ransomware on it, clean them up, and then restore. And that can really save the day. I sort of talked to this already, but basically the idea is that you can set a retention time up to 1,825 days. It's a little ridiculous. You wouldn't want to do that. So you don't want to use up all your space on the array with snapshots, but you can do something relatively reasonable, like maybe you do an hourly snapshot, maybe a daily, maybe a weekly, monthly, like that, depending on the importance of a particular volume. And then you have a guaranteed way to go back and make sure that that data has not been messed with by hackers. There's no malware on it, no type of cyber attack. Another thing that's new on the array, so this just came out with their release 5, is they have native ransomware detection. So basically, it's looking for anomalies. It's looking for strange things going on with the data, such as encryption, and it's done a little bit differently than other vendors. It's really looking for anomalies. Some people will say they have ransomware detection, but what it's really looking for is like a volume to clearly have some no ability to do dedupe and compression, because that's what happens when you have encryption. It does work, but it's not as good as what HPE has put in with their native ransomware detection. Okay, so that covers B10,000. I want to talk about something called Private Cloud Business Edition really quickly. So the idea behind this was that a lot of people, Nutanix would probably be a name that comes to mind, really like the hyperconverged experience. So the idea that you have a software-defined storage system with that single pool of resources. They're typically really easy to manage. You don't have to think about different silos you might have, a lot of automation. And then you could start with a small cluster and scale it out. It's typically easy to upgrade the software and the hardware. The problem with it, though, has always been that there's sort of a penalty for that convenience and that ease of use. Biggest thing being what I would call the over provisioning penalty, where the upgrades typically are fixed storage nodes, server storage nodes. So maybe you need more compute, but you have to scale the storage at the same time, or vice versa. Also, performance typically is not as good on a software-defined system, so you do lose some things there. Also, very commonly with these HCI solutions, there's a lot of resiliency that you have to put into them, but then you're paying for that resilience too. They're not terribly efficient from a storage perspective in particular. So what PCB does, it delivers an HCI without those problems. So what it ends up being really is like a plugin that's going to go into VMware, and it allows you to, one, set up the entire stack. That's the servers and the storage, the networking, very simply through a guided installation process. Also the same for upgrades. When you want to do upgrades, it's easy to add a new server in the cluster, add more storage. So really the nice thing about this is it scales efficiently. So with the independent compute storage, you remove the problem that you see with traditional HCI. Now this goes on the Alletra 5000 or B10000 platform. It's not something you have to get, but if you want it, it's basically free. You can get the 6 nines guarantee, 9 guarantee, or the 100% availability guarantee, depending on which platform you pick. Like I said, this is, I maybe didn't mention this. One of the nice things too is one-click upgrades. So as new patches come out, new firmware, either for your array or your compute, there's a button you can just click and it goes through the entire upgrade process for your entire stack, just like you would expect to get out of an HCI platform. So like I said, flexible scalability. So you don't over provision, you get what you need, and you upgrade transparently. So that's briefly just wanted to touch on that. Quickly, there's a few things I want to talk about from a compute standpoint that I think set HPE apart. The first thing is compute apps management, or COM. Depending on the size of your environment, things can become difficult to manage, time consuming. Maybe you don't have the budget or people to do it. Maybe things like firmware and security patches don't get quickly installed. Those various problems. This is all from a survey HP did to see people say what are the problems that they had with their environments. Well, computer apps management, you can do away with that. It's a secure cloud-based platform that allows you to automate a lot of your tasks without having to do manual effort for deployment. And they've seen up to 75% less time managing servers, less downtime per server per year, and this can save you money because you may not have to have people travel to do some of these things. So it's a secure environment. It's managed from that GreenLake cloud platform that we've mentioned. So you know that nobody's going to get in there that doesn't belong. There's two-factor authentication. Also, thanks to ILO and the Silicon Root of Trust, there's guarantees that your firmware can't be fiddled with and things along those lines. So this is a nice way to keep your servers up to date. So what it'll do is it'll let you update things like your firmware, update drivers, and it's not something where you have to go and find these anymore like you used to with HPE's server platform. So all you do is 3 steps. You get a server loaded with COM, get it added to the COM platform out on the cloud. You set up your server group, you set policies you want, could be for what you want for firmware, what kind of security you want. You could have different server workload profiles and things like that. And then you add servers to these group, and then it just starts going and doing its thing. It also provides you a nice cloud console where you can see your entire environment, what's going on with them, with this warnings that where you've got critical problems that you really should jump on, or where there's things that are just warnings, so that you know how your entire environment is faring, and then you can easily go in and then change that too. All right, so this is a great tool to help you manage hundreds of servers if you have a really large environment, organize things, get firmware scheduled to when you want it to be updated. You can stagger those so they're not all getting updated at the same time. So this really helps keep you up to date and helps you avoid downtime for having problems with those things. Another thing I want to talk about quickly is security. Very important thing to customers. As you know, with all the different crypto crime, BitLocker, not crypto locker and stuff like that, just the cost that people are seeing, all the different cyber crimes. One of the things that HPE has done, and this has been since Gen 10, recognizing that there is a lot of threats out there from digital attacks, physical attacks, that they wanted to make sure that the servers were protected. So with ILO 6, they came out with this thing called the Silicon Root of Trust. And what this does is help prevent any malicious firmware or drivers to be loaded on the system. And when the system boots, it's automatically going to check and make sure everything is authentic. So it's not booting with something that's been hacked. And because of the integration with Compute Ops Management too, this is all locked in to make sure like you're getting good firmware from HPE as well from that cloud portal. HPE also has something called the trusted supply chain. So how this works is they fully monitor all the steps in the integration process when they're putting servers together, so that somebody's not, a man in the middle is not getting on a server and messing around with the firmware or things like that, so that something is compromised. This does go back to Gen 10, but this just goes over some of the things that they've added. One of the new things in particular is something called the Secure Enclave. I'll just jump into that quick because I want to give John time. All right, so again, and this was on ILO 6 too, but the Secure Enclave is new. They just moved things around and added some things, but you can go back to Gen 10, it has the same type of thing. So this is a tamper-resistant firmware environment, effectively. So someone can't just go to the motherboard, put something on a chip and insert things or take things out of it. It's locked down. So during the boot process, that's going to check the integrity of firmware, ensuring only a trusted, authentic version of any code can go on that. And one last thing I want to mention is something called VM Essentials, or HPE Morpheus VM Essentials. So for those of you that may have been suffering with Broadcom's changes with their licensing and their discounts and the cost going up, 2 to 4x times for a lot of customers, and I've heard even worse horror stories than that. Well, HP does have their own virtualization platform, which is Morpheus VM Essentials. The nice thing about this too is you can manage VMware with it as well. So if you have an environment where maybe you have some VMware in it and you want to maybe try this out, or have just some of your systems on vSphere and some on the HP VM Essentials, you can do that. You can now manage it all from a single pane of glass. It's KVM based, so it is on Linux. Like I mentioned, they'll support VMware and HP VMs, and they have the nice thing about it is licensed per socket, not per core. So the cost is drastically less than VMware for just about every customer. I see this be a better experience from that standpoint, and it's supported by HPE as well. So you have a tier 1 vendor behind it. Just to give an idea of the features, so there's a lot of features that are similar to what you'd expect out of VMware. There's things that they're working on. They are really trying to make sure that this is a very good alternative to VMware with all the features that you would expect out of that. So they keep evolving it. And with that, I am going to hand it over to John and give him as much time as I wanted, but
Let's see. All right, can you guys see my desktop?
yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk about the unified management between all these technologies. So certainly Dave went into a lot of different types of technologies. I'm just going to give you a smattering of features within some of these solutions. And what I would highly recommend is you reach out to Clever if any of these things tickle your fancy, you want to learn more about it, and we can get together and I can give you a full demonstration on any of these technologies. But where I'm going to start first is on the GreenLake platform. Again, like what Dave said, is if you look at the cloud as being an experience and less of a destination, the HPE GreenLake platform brings that to on-prem hardware and it allows you to manage a hybrid IT environment. Now, down here, there's a variety of solutions that are available. I'm going to touch on a few of them, but just to give you kind of a thought process for things that I could do with this, for example, could I come into something like Aruba Central Networking and configure that networking? Because maybe I'm setting up a new VMware environment or something like that. You know, I could certainly do that. Could I come into Compute Ops and then actually deploy the hypervisor inside that environment? Absolutely, that's fully supported. And once that stack was set up, could I come into data services and then provision storage for that? I could certainly do things like that. And even if we could even look at Private Cloud Business Edition for managing in a complete hyperverse environment. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start working through some of these menus and show you some different features. So for example, let's jump into Compute Ops, where I'm managing a variety of servers, but we can quickly see that I do have a warning that's happening over here. And I could click on that warning, right? And I could go in and I could see the system that's having the issue. And actually what it did is it put a filter in. So I'm going to reset the filters and apply them so we can see all of them. But here's that one machine that's there. It's got issues, and I can dig into this pretty quickly, get all kinds of information about that server, that ProLiant server. And more importantly, here's where the health issues are. And if I scroll down a little bit, I could see that I've got a power supply issue that's happening here. All right, so I was quickly able to identify that by just coming into this environment. But other things are certainly available. So if I go over to servers and I want to do firmware updates, I could just select, we'll just select these two servers here. Looks like I did it recently, but we'll do it again. So actions, update firmware. All right, and I'll select a service pack for ProLiant, which is a collection of updates that exist. Now, I don't need to download anything. I don't need to place it anywhere. I'm just going to do the firmware, but I can certainly do the drivers and things like that. I'm going to click next. It's going to look at the systems that I have selected and determine whether or not they can appreciate this update or take this update within their environment. We can see both, and I can uncheck these if I wanted to. I'm going to click next again. I can update immediately. I could schedule these updates if I felt like it. All right, I'm going to do something immediately. I'm going to click next and start update. So firmware is the next frontier for hackers. And we don't tend to upgrade our firmware because it tends to be difficult, right? First, we have to realize that the firmware exists. We have to know, like if it's beyond HPE, you have to know there's a new BIOS update. You have to know if there's a new RAID controller update, a network card update. You have to round these all up, put them on a USB stick system. So we tend to leave systems the way they sit. Right, but hackers are looking into firmware as ways to kind of infect the environment. And I will say that HPE has the most secure servers with Silicon Root of Trust, and Dave certainly talked about that. But with every technology, you know, you need to keep things updated to make sure that you get the most out of that security features. For example, I'm sure that Microsoft, with every release of an operating system, will have a slide in their PowerPoint saying it's the industry's most secure, you know, operating system ever. But would you say that would be true as time went by and you did not do the updates, right? And again, firmware is the next place where hackers are looking into, and this is a good way to protect yourself. Think about it like this. If you get attacked ransomware, it encrypts your environment. You tuck your tail between your legs. You go recover, right? You get back up and running, right? But what if that method for reinfecting you existed inside firmware, right? You get reinfected again. Right, so this is a mechanism to make sure that you stay up to date and you protect yourself. And there's a variety of other things you can do in this platform. And you don't necessarily need to go to those enterprise level management classes. You know, there's management software that's out there that would do this, but generally it's very intensive. Anybody could spend maybe an hour with you and you can get your head wrapped around. There's a bunch of things you can do around managing these systems as groups if you wanted to. right? All right, so that's just a quick smattering, but there's more you can do with that. There's operating system deployment. There's setting up the system based on applications. There's all kinds of things, but we have a limited time. So I'm going to back up and we're going to go back over to the GreenLake platform. And I'm going to go into data services. And this is where Dave was talking about the HPE storage system, specifically the Alletra MP, the B10000, as well as the Alletra 5000 based systems. Now, I know we promote the cloud-based management interface. There are local management interfaces to this system. So this would be the Nimble-based Alletra 6000 or 5000 based interface. And this would be the local Alletra MP management interface. Two different interfaces, two different learning curves based on that. But when we look in the data services cloud console, this tends to be the great unifier. So for example, I'm going to go into block storage, and this is where you go to create volumes. You can see I'm managing a variety of systems here. I'm managing my Alletra 6000. I'm managing the B6000, the B10000, an older Nimble flash array, as well as an really old Primera array, right? All through one management interface. I don't have to bounce and go into each individual management interfaces. And what I will tell you is this Alletra 6000 is a part of a DHCI configuration. That's disaggregated hyperconverged infrastructure. That's the hardware. PCB is the management tile, right? But one of the nice things about using that is I can provision storage outside of my hyperconverged environment, outside my virtualized environment. So for example, I have this host over here. It's a standalone Windows system. I can go over to the dashboard. I can go to storage. Right, and in a second, we can see this will be all the storage that's provisioned across all my systems. We can see that all over here, right? I could filter down this view if I wanted to. I could go over here and just pick the system that I wanted to filter down, but I'm not going to do that right now. I just want to quickly go through and deploy a volume. So I'm going to click the plus sign over here. I'm going to select my storage tier, right? I'm going to select my workload so that I can fine tune the volume for that workload. I'm going to give it a name, so I'm going to call it delete me vol1. All right, I'm going to make one volume, and I don't know, why don't we make this guy 275 gigabytes? I don't know why I picked that size. I just did. I'm going to select the host group I'm going to present this to. So I'm going to pick that system that I was just showing you. So I'm going to do DL360, and here's that system here. Right, I'm going to click select the protection policy. So this is the basic snapshotting policy. You always want to set that up on a volume. I'm just going to do daily snapshots with the 30-day expiration. So after 30 days, they'll get rid of it. I could certainly go into this volume and get more complex if I want to. So I'm going to click next again. Now it's going to look at all my arrays. This is the intent-based provisioning that Dave was talking about. It's going to look at all my arrays. It's going to make the decision of what array it wants me to place this volume on. It's going to do that on a variety of criteria. It's going to do it based on capacity, connectivity, as well as performance. Right? And see, it's picked out that one array for me, but I could change that if I felt like it. Right? So I'm going to select this array. We're going to go next. Right, we're going to get some more options that are going to be related to this system and how I want to set it up, or this volume and how I want to set up. And these should be related to quality of service or the volume sets and things like that. So we can see the snapshot size. I could set virtual lock on this. Again, that's locking this volume so nobody can make changes to it whatsoever. I would say people don't do this on volumes, but people do this on snapshots. But the same option exists on snapshots. But look at that, a whole slide from Dave, and it really sums down to how long, if I want to set this, and how many days I want to set this to. So what was it, 100? And it was like 1,800 something days you could do, which again, I don't recommend. But you could set that on volumes or even snapshots. We're going to leave that blank because I don't want to lock up my array. I'm going to click next. Right, and here's my summary. I'm going to click create, and this is going to go through. Now, all the systems, whether we were talking about the PerLiant server or this Alletra array, we got safe and secure tunnels that are happening from the on-prem hardware up into this cloud platform. And right now, this is pushing that on down. As a matter of fact, if I go over here, into this management array, and I go under manage, be willing to bet that volume has already been pushed down into this environment. So it's been pushed down into the system. All right. The idea with these management consoles, I can manage locally and see it up within the cloud. I can manage it within the cloud and see it locally if I want to. But there's that volume, right? If I reload this page, I'll also see that up here. So if I do a search and we'll do delete, I'll actually see the volume collection show up. And if I select the volume, and this collection is just a collection of volumes that have the same snapshot schedule on them, but there's my volume in particular. And then here is my Windows system. I can go up to top under actions. Well, actually it automatically discovered my volume. So I'm ready to roll as far as that's concerned. All right, so that gives you kind of a little bit of flavor for the server-based management as well as the storage-based management. The next piece I want to talk about is what Dave talked about is PCBE, Private Cloud Business Edition, or that would be the management tile in the GreenLake platform. The hardware platform is a lot of times called DHCI, just so you're aware. But this gives me full management of the entire stack. So servers, storage, right? I can update these things very easily. So there is a one-click update to be able to update my storage systems, but it's pretty much similar to what we'll see in Private Cloud Business Edition. So I'm going to launch this. All right. And once again, when this loads, I'm managing a variety of systems, right? And I can quickly tell that there's something going on with these two systems. So if I select this Alletra that we are working with, right, what's kind of going on? All right, I can list the warning, and we can see I don't have a snapshot on one of the volumes. So it's letting me know that as a warning. And the other error that showed up was just I've got a firmware mismatch on the array, but I got to go correct that. But at any rate, so I can log right into this dashboard and understand what's going on inside my environment, and I'm managing multiple hyperconverged solutions. So a lot of people think of Private Cloud Business Edition as managing the DHCI stack, or whether it's based off the Alletra 5000 or based off the Alletra MP, but it also can be SimpliVity, which is HPE's true to form hyperconverged, all through one base management context, right? And if I needed to maybe update a stack, I would go over here, go down to systems. I would select my system here, right? And if I scroll all the way down, right, I'm up to date. But if I wasn't, I'd get notifications as soon as I logged into this environment saying, hey, there's an update. I'd come down here, it'd say there was a software update that was there. I'd click on this, it would bring it up. I'd check the system on update. I'd pre-check it and do an update. Right. And this is pretty much a holistic update for the environment. It'll go through and it'll update the array. So, in a resilient fashion, it'll do one of the controllers, fail things on over, and then do what the other controller inside the environment. And then it'll go, if it's VMware, take one of the hosts and put it in maintenance mode, migrate all those virtual machines off. It'll do the service pack for Reliance, so update the entire firmware set on the HPE server. It'll update the ESX software in the environment as well as the special HPE software, bring that online and move to the next one. Now, the best story that I have around this solution is I upgraded two of these DHCI hosts from vSphere 7 to vSphere 8. Right, it took me half a day to do both of those. Now, vCenter needs to be done outside of this, but VMware gives you a pretty good way of doing that. Right, but after that, once the vSphere vCenter was updated, right, I can update the entire stack through this management platform. So simple way to do it. Right, it also gives me the ability to be able to deploy virtual machines. So I'm going to take this cluster here. All right, and I'm going to select it. I thought I selected. And these are all my virtual machines. So again, if I look locally inside this environment, I'll see those virtual machines over here. And I've got some management bars that are showing up here. So let me maximize this again. And these are the same virtual machines that show up in here. What I can do inside this environment is I can deploy virtual machines. So I can click the plus sign over here. Right, I'll create one virtual machine. And again, I'm going to call this delete me VM2. I don't know. And then I'm going to click next. All right, that's the cluster I'm going to deploy to. All right, these are the volumes that exist. So if I looked inside the vSphere environment, I looked under the volumes, these would be all the volumes that exist. So I'm going to select this Alletra production volume. All right, and then it's going to go find my virtual machine template that's inside the content library. And I'm just going to grab this small Ubuntu server here. I'm going to click next. And then I'm going to click next again. Obviously, there's some QoS things I could set. And then I click create. And then this is going to go through and it's going to deploy that virtual machine. And I'm going to come back and we're going to see that deployed. But I'm not limited to just deploying inside these private cloud environments. I could also, propagate on out to a public cloud environment. So for example, I have this AWS incident over here, and I can actually just search for the HPE systems VMs that I have up here, right? And I can also look at those in here. So I've got an integration with AWS here. And if I look at my public cloud VMs, those were the same VMs. And again, I could filter this down by just my VMs, which are the HPE VMs. But I could also deploy a VM if I felt like it. And they support Azure as well as AWS, right? And let's say HPE dash, and again, I'm going to use that same delete me VM. All right, I'm going to select my cloud account, select my region. We're going to do North Virginia. I got to put in a key pair. E dash DSCC. That should be good. Then I'm going to click next. All right, and then these are the images that AWS have available. So I could go over here, and I'm just going to do again a small Ubuntu image. So let's search that. There we go. Take that and I'll click next. All right, and then I'm going to look for something that's free tier eligible because I don't want to rack up our costs. There we go. There's one. I'm going to click next again and then create. And now this is getting deployed. So I deployed 2 VMs, right? From this one interface, I could manage my complete high-end IT environment. Local VMs or in the cloud. So for example, if I go under this VMware cluster, we could see that delete me 2 virtual machine was created over here. And then if I go up inside EC2 up in the Amazon interface and I do a refresh, we can see that this virtual machine is also being substantiated as well. So think about what I accomplished out of this information in just the 15, 17, 16 minutes plus here. I went in and I updated the firmware on my systems inside my environment. I created a volume, presented that to a Windows host. I checked for updates inside my hyperconverged cluster, and then I deployed a virtual machine within those clusters, both on-prem and up within the cloud. So a lot of work can be done from within this interface. All right, so that was quick, and I invite you to kind of explore any of these solutions with Clever and reach out, and we can go into deeper. But with that, I'll hand it back to you guys.
Thank you so much. That's been super helpful. I guess at this point, if in the last couple minutes here, if there's any questions, now would be a good time. But if not, thank you so much for spending your lunch break with us, and hopefully we delivered some information that was helpful. I will follow up with the recording of the webinar, and if you're looking at any options, let us know. I'll copy one of my engineers, go ahead and share any spec that you have, and we can get started on getting you some pricing just to kind of compare things on your end. So if there are no questions, we'll stick around for a couple minutes, but if there are no questions, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks, David. Thanks, John.
All right.
Thank you.
See you later.